If you suspect MTHFR as the cause of your anxiety, depression, and other health conditions, hold on to your seats. We're about to delve into the MTHFR gene and unveil some jaw-dropping revelations that your doctor might not want you to know. Hello, and welcome to this growing community of people who are ready to heal their anxiety and depression for good. I'm Carrie Bailey, your functional nutritionist. I work with people with anxiety, depression, and other weird mystery symptoms, and together we heal. Many people think that there's just 2 MTHFR gene mutations, but in fact, there's actually more than 30. But there are just 2 that are the most studied and most well-known. There's the MTHFR C677T and the MTHFR A1298C. Depending on which combination of genes you have, you could be as slow as 20 to 70% in your ability to make methylfolate. So let's break that down. So when we look at genes, we get one from our mother and one from our father. If we get one from both of them, it's called homozygous. And if we get one from one or the other, it's called heterozygous. If you have the C677 version of MTHFR and you're heterozygous, meaning you got it just from one parent, not from both, then you have a 30 to 40% chance of having a slower gene than to have no mutation at all. And if you got the C677T from both parents, meaning you're homozygous, you have a 60 to 70% of chance of a slower gene than if you had no mutation. Let's jump into the A1298C gene. Now, if you are heterozygous, meaning you got it from one parent, you have one copy of it, that gene is 20% slower than if you had no mutation. And if you're homozygous, you are 40% slower than if you had no mutation. Now, the last combination is interesting because you'll notice very rarely, I've never seen it, I don't know if it exists, but you would almost never be homozygous for both of those genes. But you can be heterozygous for both of those genes. And in that case, it's called compound heterozygous for MTHFR. This means you got one of each of those genes from one or each of your parents. Just one parent gave you that gene. So you have one copy of each. Now, this will make you 40 to 50% slower at your ability to make methylfolate with this gene mutation, rather than if you had no gene mutation. The importance of MTHFR is that it is the first step in your ability to methylate. What is methylation, you might ask? It's something that happens 1 billion times a second in your body. It happens in your cells at the cellular level, generally starting in your liver. Methylation is how your body makes neurotransmitters, right? It has to be able to make the neurotransmitters and break down those neurotransmitters, right? So that you don't have too much serotonin, too much dopamine. You know, you have the Goldilocks form. You have just a right amount of neurotransmitters. Methylation also is an important first step in your ability to make energy. If you can't methylate, you're not going to be able to make energy. Methylation is also important for your body's ability to detoxify. So whether it's adrenaline and cortisol that's made by your adrenal glands, if it's making those, your liver has to help you break it down and get rid of it. So every chemical that comes into your body is broken down by methylation. Methylation converts tryptophan. So for instance, if you ate some turkey and you got some tryptophan, that tryptophan would convert to serotonin, again, methylation, and then that serotonin would convert to melatonin, methylation. So now you can sleep. So you can see that methylation is important even in your ability to sleep. So methylation is also the conversion of every food that you eat. So when you eat your leafy greens, it's methylation that happens in order for you to convert that leafy green into a nutrient that your body can use. And that's the methylfolate. So there are 5 steps in the folate pathway in your body. So from the time you eat those leafy greens, it goes through 5 enzymatic reactions to make methylfolate. And MTHFR gene is just the 5th step. So there are 4 other genes, right? And those could also be slow or fast or anything else, right? And so it's important that all of them work well, not just the MTHFR gene. This is really going to be surprising for most people, but whether you have 1 or more MTHFR genes, or like myself, you have none, you can still have health issues, right? The health issues have nothing to do with the gene mutation. Now, it might increase your susceptibility. You might have a better chance of having health issues if you have the MTHFR gene. But I've met people that are perfectly healthy that have MTHFR, and I've met people that are not healthy at all and they don't have MTHFR. So then what causes this? What's the confusion about MTHFR? It's actually epigenetics. It's really what's turning on those genes or turning off those genes or activating things and making things work. What's making the biochemical processes in your body work or not work? Underlying cause of your ability to whether you can methylate well are pathogens and toxins. They're really the thing that's causing the symptoms, not your genetics. So as I said before, your neurotransmitters are made by the foods that you eat and your body's ability to convert them and make neurotransmitters. So your neurotransmitters, you're making serotonin and tryptophan and all the things in order to have a happy mood. What happens is those pathogens and toxins, they're a little bit like potholes on the road, right? Between nerves along your nervous system. When your neurotransmitter is going along and it hits one of those potholes, it might veer off the road, right? And then it's gone, right? And so it's not only important to make the neurotransmitters to make sure that there's no potholes in the road. And so that's why we want to get rid of pathogens and toxins so that you can have that smooth communication along your nervous system. The best way to start, I would say, is to check out my anxiety and depression recovery guide. That's going to get you off started on this journey in a great way. There you're going to get tips, tricks, recipes, videos, everything you need to get you started on this journey to healing. I'm going to tell you everything that I would tell whether you have the MTHFR gene mutation or whether you didn't. The answers for health are the same. First off, avoid processed foods. And if you have MTHFR gene and you know you have that gene, avoid processed wheat like the plague. And the reason for that is that wheat has been fortified in the US for 25 years with folic acid. Folic acid is the synthetic form of folate. It's not the form we want. Ideally, we want methylfolate. But in order to avoid birth defects, the FDA put it in food in 1998 in order to, again, avoid birth defects. And so the more gluten you eat, the more wheat you eat, the more grains that you eat that are fortified with folic acid, then the more folic acid you might be getting in your body. The problem with that is that folic acid, because it's synthetic, it's also kind of a strong magnet. So it's more magnetic, which means that you're going to get the folic acid, which isn't going to work as well as the methylfolate. And that folic acid could slow some of those other enzymatic reactions that are making the methylfolate. The second one specifically, the DHFR. It's going to slow that down, and it's going to slow your ability to actually make the kind that your body needs, which is methylfolate. So it's really important to pull out all synthetic forms of folic acid. Check your supplements, avoid processed grains. And it should tell you on the label, but it might not always tell you on the label that it has folic acid in it. Always want to eat the nutrients, which are going to convert well to methylfolate, which is leafy greens, lentils, chickpeas, nutrients like that, avocados. Those are all great nutrients that are going to convert into making methylfolate. So you might be slower if you have those genes, but at least you're going to get it into the system. So on a daily basis, you want to make sure you get as many leafy greens, whole foods, fruits, and vegetables. This is the best way to deal with having an MTHFR gene. If you're a person who is sick and can't get well, you want to reduce your toxic exposures. And the first, there's a lot of toxins out there, and there's a lot of things that I could talk about for days. But for now, I'm just going to talk about the one that I hear and see a lot, and that are fragrances. These are scents. These are fragrances, perfumes. These are everywhere. If you're a woman, especially, the more personal care products you use, the more chances you have of being exposed to perfumes and fragrances. And those can have any number of ingredients in it that we don't even know with just the label of fragrance. Those fragrances, you're going to want to avoid dryer sheets. Watch out for fragrances in your laundry detergent, in your scented candles, in your Febreze, room fresheners is what I'm trying to say. Your shampoo, your conditioner, your lotion, all of those things, if they have a fragrance in it, could be a toxin that your body has to break down and get rid of. And that's going to put a huge burden on your body to try to get rid of those toxins. So again, make sure you get rid of the chemical fragrances. And most fragrances are chemical fragrances, unless you're using an essential oil or something very, very natural that you are familiar with. Unless you know it is a natural scent, I would avoid it completely. Now, the other thing that people with MTHFR struggle is, again, because they don't break down things very well, I would avoid any kind of drug. So that includes alcohol, caffeine, cigarettes, marijuana, vaping, street drugs, no judgment, yeah, legal drugs, illegal drugs, over-the-counter prescriptions, prescription medications. All of those, your liver is going to have to break down. And if you don't methylate well, you're going to have a hard time breaking down all those chemicals. Another bit of insurance that you can try is to bring in a B complex. My favorite B complex is B Supreme by Designs for Health. You can get this on Amazon. Just to give you an idea, B Supreme has about 200 micrograms in it, and the recommended daily allowance is 400 micrograms. So it's very, very low. It's a good place to start. I will do a future video on reacting to methylfolate, methylcobalamin, or B complexes. If you've had that experience that you've reacted to any of those, pop a comment below and let me know what your experience was so that I can do a future video on that. Hey, it's also important every day to do things that calm your nervous system. So whether that's a hot bath or meditation, those are great lifestyle factors to incorporate. Also, moving your body daily. Again, I never recommend running a marathon. You don't have to run. Any kind of movement, whether it's walking or yoga or Pilates, whatever you enjoy, just get up and move your body every single day. That will help your methylation process work better. And there are two other nutrients that are really critical for this methylation process. One is zinc. Without zinc, your methylfolate cannot move on to the next step. And also magnesium. Magnesium is deficient in a lot of foods and a lot of our bodies. So bringing magnesium and zinc in can help that methylation process move along as well. In summary, your MTHFR gene can slow your ability to make methylfolate anywhere from 20 to 70%, depending on your gene mutations. But having one or more gene mutations does not control your health. It's your epigenetics that's even more important than the genes that you have. You may have an increased susceptibility with MTHFR to having health conditions, but it is not definitive by any means. You'll still need to address the underlying root cause of your symptoms of why you're struggling. Genes don't create symptoms. Pathogens and toxins create symptoms. So be sure to eat your leafy greens, ideally anywhere from 80%, 90% of your diet should be fruits, vegetables. Avoid all excess chemicals that you don't need, whether it's perfumes, alcohol, over-the-counter drugs, prescription drugs, marijuana, cigarettes. Avoid your exposure to those things as much as possible. Bring in a really good B complex like Designs for Health B Supreme. And on a daily basis, do exercise and stress management. Thanks for being here. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up and share this with someone else that you know that might have the MTHFR gene. I'd love to hear your ahas from today. If you want to pop a comment below, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next video.